the rest of the planetary system.
Fantastic. All right, let's take another question. What do we have? All right, from @endanger8177. Approximately how large is the sample size, and what kind of analysis will be performed?
So it's about 8 or 9 ounces. It's about the size of a baseball and a half, and the kind of analyses are amazing. There are toolkits in this system that can look at nanoscale characteristics that you wouldn't imagine. We can see the hairs on a foot ant, but we'll look at those in the context of another object in the solar system. So, wow.
Wow, indeed. All right, we'll be taking some more questions throughout the morning. Okay, so let us head back to the ellipse to talk to Sophia. I understand, Sophia, you've got a critical team member with you. Take it away.
Thanks, Lauren. Yes, I am joined right now by Stu Wiley, who's the Oscar or on-scene commander of this recovery mission. Thank you for joining me, Stu.
Thanks for having me, Susan.
All right, so you are the person who kicked off this whole process before even the recovery team gets on the ground. Can you walk us through your process?
Yeah, so essentially what's going to happen is that the capsule is undershoot. We'll have a better idea of where it's going to land on the range. And that I'll know exactly what kind of weapon systems we use in that area, what kind of tests we've done in that area. So I'll know better what hazards are in the area. Once I land on the ground, I'll do an initial sweep of the area and methodically move towards the capsule and mark any kind of hazards that I find, whether it be munition hazards, of course, and or the industrial hazards, and even the environmentally sensitive areas that we have out here. So.
All right, and how did you prepare for this today?
So preparation has been in the process for a long time. Between myself and Jasmine Nakayama, we've got 40 years worth of explosive knowledge. Most of it is on this range here, so we know ranges very well. The team and the UTR have been working together, both Lockheed and NASA, and we've been doing rehearsals so that we are more familiar with their capsule, and they're more familiar with our terrain here as well. Yeah, so.
And this is an active proving ground here. So what are the other steps that we have to ensure that our teams are safe?
Yeah, so at the Utah Test and Training Range, we do have a lot of different hazards out here. Like I said, the weapon systems that we test. We're going to keep them safe from that. We have, again, done many of the preparations with them already. They've taken safety briefings. They've been briefed on the actual items that we've dropped out here in their range safety brief. One of the hazards that we're going to be dealing with, though, is the helicopters that you see behind us, and they've been through practices getting on helicopters and working in and around them. But I think the biggest hazard that we're going to have is slipping. We had some recent rain, so that I think is going to be a hazard, but it could be fun too. So.
Well, wonderful. I know that you have your last preparations for the day, so I'm going to let you go, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thanks, Sophia. Stu's got a big day today.
Oh, my goodness.
A lot to do. All right, Jim, we know we have space fans from all walks of life all over the world. One super fan in particular is a well-known astrophysicist with an atypical cycle. But I'm guessing you know him probably more from his science thing than his science thing.
That's right. He's to bring back rocks.
Just our true rock star. Let's let him speak for himself.
Hello NASA folks, space fans, asteroid aficionados. This is Brian of Queen, as you know, probably, but also immensely proud to be a team member of Osiris-Rex. I can't be with you today. I wish I could. I'm rehearsing for a Queen tour, but my heart's there with you as this precious sample is recovered. Happy sample return day, and congratulations to all who worked so incredibly hard on this mission. Especially my dear friend Dante, with whom we already created this beautiful book. God bless you all.
Speaking of rock stars, joining us is NASA's Lori Glaze, Planetary Science Mission Director. Welcome, Lori.
Hey, good morning. Great to have you here, Lori.
Great to have you. And you and Jim go back quite a ways, right?
Oh, yes. Jim and I actually go back several decades. We've been working together closely for many, many years, and it's so good to see you here. What an exciting
Congratulations,
moment.
Lori!
Thank you.
It is a really exciting day. So Osiris-Rex is part of a larger autumn for asteroid autumn, as we've been saying. Can you talk about some of the other missions that are happening this fall?
Happy to do that. It is really lots of asteroid missions, and actually 4 of them have major milestones coming up this autumn. Right on the heels of the sample return happening today, in 2 days, on September 26th, is the 1-year anniversary of a little mission you may have heard of last year called the Double Asteroid Deflection Test, demonstrated for the first time humanity's ability to deflect the path of an asteroid. How cool is that? And then coming up on October 5th is the launch of a mission called Psyche, going to visit a special asteroid called Psyche also, which is one of only about 9 of asteroids that we think are made primarily of metal, have a very high metal content, iron and nickel. And then about first is going to be the first asteroid flyby of our mission called Lucy, which is asteroids that lead and trail Jupiter in its orbit around the sun, but in November we'll fly by a main belt asteroid called Dinkinesh.
Wow, check that out.
It literally is an asteroid arm. But Lori, one other thing, Osiris-Rex, is a multi-purpose mission, all this great stuff you mentioned. And one of its key jobs is the planetary defense. How did it do that? Way out there.
So actually, Osiris-Rex gave us some really important new information about an effect that occurs on asteroids called the Yarkovsky effect. And what that really is we know there's gravitational pulls on the asteroids, and we can predict that with our trajectories, but Yarkovsky effect says that the sun's radiation heats up one side of the asteroid, and then as the asteroid rotates, the radiation radiates off into the deep space. And that actually kind of acts as a force that kind of pushes back against the forward trajectory. And so it changes our predictions on where the asteroid might be over time. It really makes a difference. And Osiris-Rex gave us some fantastic new measurements on that effect.
Unbelievable.
Wow, that is truly unbelievable. Who appreciates the planetary defense more than me and Jim?
Yeah, want to be safe.
Big fans. Really quickly here. This is the end. What's next?
Yeah, so really exciting. Now that the spacecraft has released its capsule successfully, about 20 minutes after that release, we're now repurposing the spacecraft for a new mission called Osiris-Apex. Apex stands for Explore, and it's on its new mission to explore the asteroid Apophis, which is going to have a close flyby of Earth in 2029.
All right, stay tuned, everybody.
Unbelievable.
That is fantastic. Well, thank you so much for
Thanks,
joining
Lori.
us. You're going to read the show, right?
Oh,
Absolutely. Okay. This will be the biggest U.S. sample return since the Apollo mission to the moon. This is not the first time that anyone has captured a piece of an asteroid. On the arrival of the historic Osiris-Rex sample, we celebrate that the Japanese Space Agency, or JAXA, has already visited 2 asteroids, Itokawa in 2005 and the asteroid Ryugu in 2019. The missions, Hayabusa and Hayabusa 2, proved that it could be done and paved the way for today's ambitious goals of this daring enterprise. All right, let's send it back to for an update on mission operations. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So everything continues to be nominal at tracking the mission. Everyone looks dialed in, ready to go. You saw a few moments ago Sophia with Stu Wiley, our on-scene commander. He's ready to go. He understands the mission. They are ready to get out and recover that sample today. And I mentioned earlier, just a few moments ago, actually I guess a couple hours ago, when the SRC from the main Osiris-Rex spacecraft, when that took place, it was given an initial spin, which kind of preserves its angular momentum, its speed as it's coming in to Earth's atmosphere. Similar to throwing a perfect spiral on a football, teams are hoping for that perfect touchdown today. What you're about to see is basically the equivalent of throwing a touchdown pass over 10 football fields away and landing perfectly in that end zone. So you can see on your screen now the mission operations team. They are just next door, dialed in, ready to go, and monitoring the vitals of the SRC all morning. They've been there in the room, prepared, ready to go. I'm sure they are absolutely thrilled for this moment. They might even see themselves on the screen in a second, but they are ripe and ready to go. This is the Lockheed Martin team, just a little bit north of us, in Washington, Colorado. They are also dialed in. They're the ones who gave that initial command this morning to release the SRC from the main Osiris-Rex spacecraft. Lori, that Osiris-Rex now on its way to its extended mission. Apex, visiting that new asteroid, Apophis. A lot coming up in just a few moments. We're going to hit that key milestone of entry, descent, and landing. 13 minutes of punishing descent through Earth's atmosphere to here, Utah Test and Training Range. A lot coming up in just a few moments, but for now, back to you, Lauren and Jim.
Thanks, James. Very soon, NASA's Artemis program will be bringing us more. The lunar lander returned. On the rim of the moon's oldest basin, the enormous South Pole Aitken Basin. Artemis will explore. As well as increase our understanding of planetary processes. Osiris-Rex, the first U.S. mission to collect a sample from an asteroid, returned samples from asteroid Bennu. The rocks and dust will offer generations of scientists a window into a time when the sun and planets were forming over 4.5 billion years ago. Samples from Os and Artemis could rewrite our understanding of the evolution of the solar system. And that's a look at your Artemis Moon Minute. Boy, Jim, how can you not get excited about
My
that?
gosh.
Oh, it's going to be so cool. All right, Sophia is standing at the forward edge of the recovery zone with an update. Take it away, Sophia.
EDL. That is descent and landing. And I don't think there's anyone here on planet Earth who has anticipated this day more than the principal investigator of the mission, Dante Loretta. Thank you for giving us time here today.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
All right, so you're here on Wig Mountain because you're on the recovery team.
That's right.
Can you walk us through what you're going to be doing today?
So I'm part of the environmental sampling group. From day one, this mission has paid attention to keeping that sample pristine. And we're going to come down. We had some rain on Thursday. Most likely we're going to be encountering mud out there. We're also interested in the air quality and any water that might be standing, just so in the very rare event that any of that material somehow comes into contact with the sample, we have a record of it and it won't compromise our science.
Wonderful. I think one of the really exciting things about a mission like this, especially with you, the University of Arizona, is that you're partnering with educational institutions. So can you talk a little bit about the legacy that a mission like this has?
Yeah, thank you. I'm a professor at the University of Arizona in the Lunar and Planetary Laboratory, and our history goes all the way back to the Apollo missions. The founder of our lab, Gerard Kuiper, mapped the moon, helped pick the Apollo landing sites and the Surveyor landing sites, and we have been involved in every major NASA planetary mission since then. And really the best part of having a university lead a program like this is that it's a great training ground for the next generation. I've been on this program almost 20 years, and I've watched multiple generations of students grow up, become professionals, either join the team. We always take our team members on board when we need to fill roles, or off into other careers in aerospace engineering, science, and many other disciplines.
It's really great to foster those incredible questions about our universe.
Absolutely.
And I know that you need to get back to your team to go on that recovery process.
The moment's almost here.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck out there today.
Thank you.
All right, back to you, Lauren.
Great. Wow, I can't wait for Dante to get his moment in the sun.
Goes Dante.
That is amazing. All right, so Jim, the whole Osiris-Rex spacecraft is not coming back today, right? It's just a part of it.
That's right. This is the whole spacecraft, 40 feet long, the size of a school bus. But this special little thing here, the sample return capsule, is bringing home the goodies. And that's what we just released. That we'll be entering the atmosphere, and you'll be hearing all about it. And the samples were collected at the asteroid back in October 2020. This damn thing.
was an engineering model that was used in tests a few weeks ago for a drop test. Can you talk a little bit about the engineering of this?
That's right. This is a very special spacecraft. Just like a small version used to bring crews back when they come back home to Earth from the space station. He'll 30 across, so it weighs over 100 pounds. Has a back shell. Inside has the sample transistor, and the sample cap, the small sample capture. So this is the vehicle that brings those samples protected from all those changes in environment, from the top of the atmosphere, 13 minutes of descent to the touchdown point that we're waiting for today. This is a very special spacecraft.
It absolutely is. It also was used in a drop test, as I mentioned. Let's take a look at now.
Right. So just a couple weeks ago, we dropped this replica, this engineering test unit, from 5,000 feet with a parachute deployment, and went through all the operations, the choreography we need to actually make sure we can do it today. And that's going to be coming up. And then we're wonderfully, we laid before the parachute, it floated down to the surface at 11 miles an hour. We went through all the operations, the safing, the bagging, and the containment. Come over to the clean room here, where we'll be doing that today to make sure those samples are from Bennu, studied on Earth, and not contaminated by Earth.
That's right, and you know it's the actual SRC that they use because it is covered in dirt, as you can see on here.
This is dirt, scratch marks.
All the scratch marks, yeah.
It's a rough ride,
the real deal.
but we need it to come home. This is a real homecoming.
Right. So there's a lot of science and missions like that. Not only is the SRC a treasure chest with material from the Indian solar system, but the mission itself is a platform for research about a range of things that you might not have expected.
SciFly's mission is to collect visual, infrared, and spectral data on spaceflight vehicles, including the Osiris-Rex sample capsule on its return to Earth. This gives scientists unique insight into our most challenging questions about hypersonic fluid dynamics, provide a critical to flight safety systems. The scientifically calibrated in-flight imagery team uses ground-based sensors and instruments flying on various aircraft to image asteroid sample returns, launch abort systems, parachute tests, rocket launches, and capsule returns, including Artemis 1 on both launch and reentry. The data we capture provides engineers with information on vehicle performance relative to what computational tools and wind tunnel tests predict. Extensive planning to get it right. Upon its return from the asteroid belt, the Osiris-Rex capsule will be traveling at 12 kilometers per second, or about 1,000 miles per hour. That's twice as fast as objects coming back from low Earth orbit, and it will be among the 4 fastest human-made objects ever to fly in Earth angular seconds. In partnership with the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, Rocket Technologies International, and universities in Australia and Germany, SciFly is coordinating 3 ground stations and 4 aircraft to collect data on the sample return capsule's trajectory, heat shield, and the plasma environment surrounding the capsule as it's to the surface. All to help NASA understand its performance and help future planetary missions. Joining
us, Kate, scientist and climate advisor. Thank you so much for being here. It is wonderful to have you. All right, so as NASA's chief scientist, you're looking at the big picture. How much work across the agency has made to a day like today a possibility?
A mission like this take a big team within NASA and without. So we outside of NASA. So the mission is managed by Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland. The sample is going to be going to the Johnson Space Center in Texas.
The station keep outside the landing gears.
We got a confirmation that helicopters 1 and 2 have just taken off. Exciting. All right.
So, Kate, one other thing. As a science and expert on our planet works, can you tell us how this asteroid mission, the sample return, might impact how we understand life on
origins of water and carbon here on Earth.
That's incredible.
That is incredible. And, you know, Kate, I know you've been to several launches. That's our typical bread and butter here at NASA. But this is more of a homecoming. How does that feel to you?
It's great. The environment here is so nice. Being with the team and thinking about, you know, this spacecraft launched 7 years ago, and now there's all this amazing nice around the corner.
Can you believe it? The team has really been working hard. And are you going to stick around for the show?
Awesome.
Fantastic. All right. So much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much. This seems like a perfect time to dig into some more information about Bennu. Bennu isn't part of the main asteroid belt. It's a NEO, a near-Earth asteroid with an orbit that occasionally brings it in close proximity with us here on Earth. Bennu is about 500 meters in diameter, which is taller than the Empire State Building. It rotates upside down on its axis as compared to Earth, with a tilt of over 177 degrees. Scientists chose to study Bennu because of its
Operations Helicopter 2 has departed WIG. The station keep outside the landing list.
All right, so you just heard that they have departed WIG. Excellent
Whoa.
progress. Fantastic. All right. Moving on, it isn't as smooth a surface as we thought. It's actually covered in pebbles and marked by these large rocks and boulders nearly everywhere. One boulder in particular that Osiris-Rex had to navigate around was nicknamed Mount Doom and was the size of a 2-story building. Bennu holds the Guinness World Record of the smallest object to be orbited by a spacecraft. How fun. Now let's get an update from Sophia, who is standing on the edge of the ellipse. Take it away, Sophia.
Okay, 2 of the helicopters have already just departed. So the team is already in the recovery process, or at least the beginning phases of it. But right now, we are waiting to hear precisely where the capsule is going to land before the rest of the teams head on over to that location. Now, we are about under 10 minutes away from the capsule hitting the top of our atmosphere, and we are eagerly anticipating this largest sample of ancient solar system material that we have received since the last Apollo mission in 1972. So that is 51 years since we've had such a pristine and large sample of ancient solar system material. It's a really for science, and we're just in the beginning phases of today. And we're certainly excited to hear about what will happen and see those parachutes finally descend through our atmosphere. So yes, we're certainly excited, but this is just one phase of this amazing mission. I'm going to send back to you.
The operational milestones we're expecting throughout the morning. SRC separation already happened. The capsule is now heading for its rendezvous with Earth's atmosphere. Jim, it always appears like these operations are simply inevitable. You know, we grabbed the sample, we flew back to Earth, we're headed in for landing.
We have a lot of critical events that take masterful engineering. We have to hit the top of the atmosphere, transition through a high G, high heat environment, go from 27,000 miles an hour down to eventually 11 for that safe landing. All these things involve changes in environments, forces, things that could disrupt our sample and change them, which we want to document. And so we really want to understand it and only bring it to rest so we can then bag it and encapsulate it so we can eventually get the sample into our clean room here so we're ready to transfer it tomorrow to Houston to the Johnson Space Center. So this is a big process, well rehearsed by a masterful team.
Absolutely, and contains, you know, work from thousands of individuals who are making this happen. All right, so we know that you're submitting questions from all over. Let's take a few more social questions. All right, what do we have? At Dev Saran at 5342461. What are the preliminary steps to take to test a sample? The preliminary steps.
So first thing we do is, of course, bag it here and get it into the clean room and get that sample, that sample canister inside the sample return capsule, get it under nitrogen purge, meaning we flow nitrogen gas so no Earth atmosphere and microbes get involved. That'll have a period of a few hours. Then tomorrow we transfer to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, for all the happens at the Astromaterials Curation Facility, where we've done moon rocks and samples of interplanetary dust and lot of things. Those colleagues, especially perfectly designed, this will unpack those samples in the small sample canister, the small used on the end of the tag SAM, and they will go process to get it checked out, to do early reconnaissance, and to protect it very carefully.
That is and they built that whole clothing room. No other asteroid samples before. This is the first one.
First ever.
First ever. As the SRC approaches the edge of Earth's atmosphere, we are just moments away from the world's largest ever asteroid sample return. Jim, what are you feeling right?
I am literally tingling all over with exhilaration. This is a small step for a capsule and a giant leap for science.
It really is, and it's the fun part that is 7 years and nearly 4 billion miles. The work of thousands culminates in this moment. Let's turn it over to our mission commentator, James Traley, to take us to final moments. James, we're all yours.
Yeah, Lauren, buckle up. Side of entry, descent, and landing. This is 13 minutes of crazy descent, punishing crazy deceleration of our spacecraft, starting at 27,000 miles per hour when it entered into Earth. Eventually, some 280 miles per hour as it descends and lands the Utah test range. Streaking across the atmosphere above San Francisco, California, 2 miles in altitude. It's going to be coming in hot over 5 seconds after it hits that atmosphere. Half as warm as the surface of the sun to do some contact. But don't worry. Our sample will be safe and sound within. We have a heat shield, which is made of phenolic impregnated carbon ablator. It's a very fancy term to describe what's going on with the shield. It basically away or burns away any kind of heat flux that develops on that outer shell, making sure that our sample is cool within. Similar technology that we use with astronauts coming back from the moon or any kind of other landers that we have going into planets and moons. So we're just a couple of moments away from this key moment. It's going to be a very exciting next couple 13 minutes here, and you'll hear a couple calls come in from just next door operations team as they begin to get us ready for this key moment. It's a journey of 3.86 billion miles. Stabilize it and make sure that we are continuing to target ellipse that is here in the Utah test and training range. It is a 36.5 by 8 mile landing ellipse that is here, marked out for that recovery operation. You see on your screen now the mission team eager at the edge of their seats for that spot of Earth atmospheric entry. Very exciting moment coming up in just a few seconds here. We're about 20 seconds away. You see the team at Lockheed now, all ready on the edge of their seats. This team, I'll remind you, just a few hours ago, gave the command to release the SRC on this long journey. It's been on its own for 4 hours. There's nothing we can do at this point. It's coming in, rain or shine.
EDO milestone. The SRC has entered the Earth's atmosphere. You continue our tracking efforts and required.
And here we go. Start your stopwatch right now. We are 13 minutes of entry and landing. We have that expected milestone of entering into the atmosphere. Team Lockheed, and we actually have a visual now. 47,000 feet in sea level. See heat enters into Earth's atmosphere. The punch deceleration that spacecraft, that SRC is experiencing right now, as comes at 27,650 miles an hour. You see it glowing brightly in the sky. And in just a few moments, we're going to reach peak heating and peak deceleration. That's at 32 G-forces, punishing G-force on our SRC. A phenomenal view of that streaking SRC coming in across the sky. At this point, we've entered in over San Francisco, California, and are very quickly going to be approaching the Utah test and training range just a little bit further to the east. And entry was at
EDO milestone. SRC experiencing maximum heating and maximum deceleration.
So you just heard right there, we're experiencing that 5,000 degree Fahrenheit maximum heating, burning skull hot on the shield that is protecting our sample within, and maximum deceleration that is at 32 G-force, punishing deceleration of the drag forces that are acting on that SRC. is safe and sound within that SRC, that sample return capsule, as it comes in, burning through Earth's atmosphere. You can see our high-altitude plane searching for that SRC. You can see it faintly on your screen there. Our next milestone will be expecting that drogue parachute deployment. That'll be at about 102,300 feet altitude. And as I mentioned before, that will stabilize our descent and slow us from hypersonic to subsonic speeds as we continue to target the Utah test and training range.
Expected EDL month. SRC commands drogue parachute deploy.
So we heard that command to deploy the drogue parachute. Waiting to see that visual confirmation, but that is at 102,300 feet. And a side note, at this time, 8:44 a.m. Mountain Time, the Osiris-Rex spacecraft is at its closest approach to Earth. That will be on to its extended mission visiting the asteroid Apophis in the year 2029, continuing this incredible mission at another world. And in just a few moments, we should enter into special use airspace at approximately 8:46 a.m. That's going to be at 10 miles off the deck here at Utah Test and Training Range. You can still see that SRC on your screen, very distance. Still quite warm, that fireball that really was a ball of plasma just a few moments ago when it first entered into the Earth's atmosphere. And in just a few moments, we should be entering into specialist airspace. Chosen for this mission is a wide open, vast desert space, relatively flat, perfect to land the sample today. Days of leading up to this event, so the ground is a little bit soft. You can see our SRC. Streaking in. This is from our high altitude cam. Thin. That's our very common work of piping and tubing leading into that sample canister within. That just a few years ago was on the other side of the solar system from us sampling an asteroid Bennu. The team has incredible precision on this mission as well. Just a few days ago, on the 17th of September, they did their final trajectory correction maneuver, ECM-12. This corrected our velocity by 3 millimeters per second. We see.
EDL milestone. We have confirmed parachute deployment.
Wow, and after an exhilarating streak across Earth's atmosphere, we have parachute deployment. You can see just a sigh of relief from the team. I can hear there is that crystal delight, a sweet delight to see in our sky here over the Utah Test and Training Range. A phenomenal view, just wonderful to see that deployment. That is at around 5 elevation above the Utah Test and Training Range, and now this is like a marathon runner savoring that last lap as we approach the finish, that landing in the Utah Test and Training Range. Wonderful to see that. We continue to track. This is with our high altitude camera still, that WB-57. And we should have a great view from here on the ground. We've got a variety of different tracking assets. And you saw Sophia out at the edge of that ellipse watching from Wig Mountain. The team there could potentially have a wonderful view momentarily as well. We'll continue to descend. Our next altitude descent will be at about 4,000 feet. Just a few minutes away from getting that sample from the other side of the solar system, from the surface of asteroid Bennu at sample site Nightingale, to the rugged terrain of the Utah Test and Training Range. Looks like winds are relatively low. Not a lot of rocking back and forth. Those parachutes seem to be perfectly smooth coming down the parachute there. Continuing to descend, with a slight little bit of tilt back and forth of our SRC as it comes to resting velocity of 11 miles per hour as it makes that final descent. That was given internally by the spacecraft. The spacecraft you're seeing now is autonomous on board that SRC. And once that successfully lands, the teams will begin the next crucial phase of this mission, the sample recovery operations. They've been rehearsing for this moment for months, literally years really, leading up to this key moment, and are ready to begin those operations to get that SRC into our portable clean room here and extract that sample canister within. According to my watch, we're about 5 minutes away from landing with our SRC. Helicopters 1 and 2 are already staged and ready to begin those recovery operations just as soon as confirmation touchdown. This is a variable clock, so this could be a little bit faster, a little bit slower, and get close. Wind speed here is a variable that is quite hard to predict, especially once you're high up in the atmosphere. We did release a weather balloon earlier on this afternoon, or earlier on this morning rather, get a profile of our atmospheric conditions. The team puts those various models as they prepare for this key moment. But once again, are a little bit hard, a little bit of variability, so we may kind of bounce around a little bit on that predicted Osiris-Rex sample return capsule touchdown time. The ground really closing in now on that.
Either one has visual. I'm going to see the shoot.
That is phenomenal. Let's see that view here from that first helicopter. They've got visual on the sample return capsule under parachute, that orange creamsicle colored parachute, really bright in the morning light over the Utah Test and Training Range. A great view of the SRC we can have now from our helicopter as it continues to make its final descent to the terrain below. And want to get some context for this. When we were at the top of the atmosphere, we were at 27,650 miles per hour. We are now leisurely decelerating under our orange parachute to 11 miles per hour. Incredible amount of deceleration there, as Earth's atmosphere really helped us out quite a bit, getting that initial deceleration, our drogue parachute initially stabilizing our descent, and then ultimately that main parachute bringing us home. You can see right in the center of the crosshair, that is the parachute with the SRC dangling beneath. The team on the W57 doing a great job.
Touchdown. I repeat, DDO. SRC has touchdown.
And touchdown of the Osiris-Rex sample return capsule. A journey of 1 billion miles to asteroid Bennu and back has come to an end, marking America's first sample return mission of its kind and opening a time capsule to our ancient solar system. Unofficial touchdown time, 8:52 a.m. Mountain. And the team can now breathe an immense sigh of relief. We now have the sample return capsule, the SRC, containing pieces of Bennu. You see the reaction there just moments ago as they got that sample on the ground. The team out celebrating that momentous achievement of getting that sample from the other side of the solar system at asteroid Bennu. When we took that sample, we were over 200 million away from us here on Earth. The long journey back, 1.2 billion miles from asteroid Bennu, back to here with that sample, has just come to a dramatic close. And a little bit ahead of schedule, too. The SRC landed 3 minutes ahead when we had originally predicted. It was a rush to get back here, carrying and the amount of scientific information within. The team is eager to crack that SRC open, get the sample canister within, and begin the process of understanding the origins of our solar system and potentially the origins of life. We're not clear just the mission is about to get away. This is the recovery operation phase. Once the team has officially confirmed the exact touch, they'll be flying out on 4 separate helicopters. They'll operate much like a Formula One pit crew, if you will, to recover the SRC, take environmental samples at the landing zone, the LZ. Everyone has a role to play. It's going to be simultaneous action as they get that SRC recovered and begin to do environmental safety sweep, collecting samples along the way. You see our ops team just next door. I once again remind you that the sample canister itself is actually going to be opened here at Dubway. The next phase of the operation is simply to get that SRC into the clean room that has been specifically set up for this recovery operation. The team will then remove the heat shield protecting the SRC and its precious cargo within the entire descent through the entrance and landing, remove the back shell, and then extract the canister within the potassium that just a few years ago collected pieces from the asteroid Bennu. Today, the goal is to the sample
Recovery operations. Helicopters 3 and 4. Leading rig for the Bennu.
See some big smiles from the team there. Helicopters out at the landing ellipse now begin those recovery operations. The first person to approach the SRC is Stu Wiley, our on-scene commander. You see the helicopter, the last of them, taking off from the Wig Mountain just at the edge of that landing ellipse. These helicopters will have a trip out to find that exact touchdown location of the SRC and begin those recovery operations. Stu Wiley, our on-scene commander, will be the first person to approach that SRC. He'll do an environmental safety sweep checking for unexploded ordnances. As he mentioned in his interview earlier with Sophia, he understands this range. He's worked here for a number of years. He will brief the team on any possible dangers that will be presented to them as they begin those recovery operations. And then a team member from Lockwood will begin to take gas and thermal readings once the area is safe of that SRC to determine whether or not it is at safe operational levels for the rest of the team to begin the recovery operations. As I mentioned, this is going to be simultaneous action. The team has prepared. They're all going to be wearing these bright white UV shirts, sample recovery shirts. You'll see them walking out to that sample in just a few moments here once those helicopters land. A great view once again from our high altitude plane parachute there, next to our SRC. There's a possibility that there could be unexploded ordnances from that parachute. There is a mortar inside that is to fire to disconnect the parachute from the main SRC to help it come to a rest. It's a bit challenging to see from this perspective, but there could be some potential roll marks or skid marks as that SRC came to a rest on the surface below. As I mentioned, we did have a bit of precipitation here the other day, so that should make for a nice soft surface for that SRC, so it probably had a nice clean landing there. The team will assess as they get out there and check exactly how our conditions are for the SRC and the surrounding area. You do mention the team might need to wear some boots. The operations could get a little bit slippery as they begin to recover that sample. And this is a pristine sample from the ancient solar system. It could hold the clues to how everything around us came to be, from the formation of the planets to the origins of life here on Earth. Needless to say, this is precious cargo, and the recovery team is fully aware of the gravity of the situation and the importance of what they're about to do today with these recovery operations. You can see it looks like our parachute has come to a stable rest. The winds were pretty low today, so it looks like it is not billowing at all. It is almost perfectly flat, at least from this perspective, on that desert terrain. And throughout all these operations, the crew member safety is paramount. So you'll see the team probably huddle up a couple times in these recovery operations to make sure that everything is safe and continues to be nominal as they make their initial safety sweep. All of this recovery should be a very quick process, usually. They've rehearsed for this again for months. They've been out here all summer really rehearsing for this moment. They did a drop test this month. Also had numerous rehearsals actually practicing containing that SRC, getting it on a sample carrying fixture.
Recovery operations, WB has located the parachute on the ground.
You just heard that confirmation from that high-altitude plane locating that parachute on the ground. This info will be relayed to our team members aboard those helicopters as they begin their approach out to the landing zone. You have the confirmation from the high-altitude plane, as you just heard. We're still working to get confirmation from our NASA helicopter. Its way out to that landing zone as we speak. So we should hopefully have that view up in just a few moments. Continue our team just next door, the mission operations team, all looking at that high-altitude view. Right in the middle there, just pointing around with the UV white shirt, is Rich Witherspoon from Lockheed Martin. He has been leading a lot of these operations for the past couple months. He's been preparing the team for this exact moment and really has been a great leader, helping us get ready for these recovery operations. Yeah, so this ellipse here, this landing zone, is a quite large setup here, and this was chosen intentionally for this mission. It's about 37 miles by 9 miles total, this landing ellipse, out in the Utah Test and Training Range here in Dugway, Utah. This is an enormous facility. As you heard earlier, it's about the size of Rhode Island, all in all, this whole facility. It's relatively flat, very smooth terrain, this desert surface. So it's perfect for bringing something back and having that nice, safe landing on the desert surface. Just a few years ago, the Osiris-Rex spacecraft back in 2020 made its tag attempt, the touch and go attempt to actually collect the sample that is now landed in this desert. When it's only at the surface for just a couple seconds, descending at a speed about 11 centimeters per second, just a little bit faster than a baby that is crawling. It's a very slow pace. But they're able to successfully get that sample and bring it from the edge of our back to us here at the parachute at rest on the surface of the desert. This is at the Utah Test and Training Range. It's a wide open expanse here, and the team has this positional info, and they'll be relaying that to our helicopter teams to begin the recovery operations. And you'll see in a couple of seconds here, the recovery team, the recovery crews are responsible for securing the sample return vessel, the landing site around it, and room that's located just next door here in the range. A little bit later on, going to to a 100-foot long line beneath one of the helicopters, and then will actually be flown to the clean room. This was determined to be the best possible way to transport that SRC safely and efficiently, to get it on a nitrogen purge and maintain that pristine nature of the sample within. As I mentioned, this is an enormous ellipse, 37 by 9 miles. It's a large expanse to cover by car. It's a very bumpy ride up there as you kind of start to make your approach across this rugged terrain. With the helicopters, it will be approximately a 20-minute flight back with that SRC. They take it at a nice, slow pace, effectively parading the SRC around, just giving it its last big moment as it is served its purpose officially at this point of getting that sample canister safely here to Earth. Once we actually land and begin those recovery operations, you'll see a lot of team members out beginning samples, both air and also soil samples from around the area. These are places of interest for the sample curation team that will actually open up the sample canister in the coming days down at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. They have a phenomenal sample curation facility there. And samples from asteroid Bennu will join a historic collection of asteroid materials, including samples from the Apollo mission, samples from both the Stardust and Genesis missions, as well as Antarctic meteorites that were collected by our scientists. In the coming days, we'll actually know exactly how much sample we got back from Bennu. The original mission requirement was 60 grams of pristine sample from the asteroid surface. Based on some very clever engineering, the team believes that they have potentially 250 grams, or times that requirement. And so we just heard that unofficial touchdown time was at 8:52 a.m. Mountain Time, here at the Utah Test and Training Range in Delray, Utah. If you're just joining us, you see that view right now from one of our high-altitude planes observing our touchdown location. On your screen, just above that crosshair is the orange creamsicle that brought us the last part of our journey down to the surface of the Earth. You heard from Jim earlier that main parachute is about 24 feet across. Fairly large parachute that helped us decelerate on our last leg of the journey. And so we just heard a confirmation actually that the main parachute deployed much higher than was originally anticipated. It was originally supposed to deploy at about 5,000 feet elevation, but it actually deployed at around 20,000 feet, so much higher up. So that would explain our kind of earlier touchdown time than expected here. It still has touchdown on the Utah Test and Training Range. Team members continue to fly out to this location aboard helicopters. As I mentioned, there are 4 recovery helicopters in total. The mission operations team is continuing to monitor the situation. They're the ones who are relaying us that info about that high parachute deployment, that 20,000 foot parachute deployment. Here relaying any possible info over to our recovery again to make the trip out to our SRC. One of the first goals, once safe and stowed the parachute, begin to mark places of interest, as I mentioned, for that curation team to begin sampling. This is a very well-coordinated machine, very well-oiled machine that operates in tandem. They've rehearsed extensively for this moment. So just heard from the team, mission operations that they have visual of the parachute, that orange parachute on your screen moments ago. But we do not yet have visual confirmation of the SRC itself. It's continuing to the region, looking for that sample capsule.
Recovery operations. Kilos 1 and 2 are in the area of the landing site and the search operation.
Just heard that call out from Tim Preiser, who you see on your screen there from the mission operations room. He just announced that Helos 1 and 2 are now at that landing site. Point out something on the screen. I see some smiles. It seems like we might have potentially learned from that SRC in the coming moments. Helos 1 is going to be surveying this region, looking for both that SRC and also eyeing up the region, looking at that parachute that was
operations. All of the ground supported vehicles have left wood and are in pursuit of the landing zone.
So some more team members are heading out to that landing zone as well in support of those 4 helicopters that will be the main group recovering that sample. The main helicopter will be attaching that sample return capsule once the team has it located and ready to prepare for recovery operations. They'll load that down long line. You can see some team members pointing at items on the screen here. We'll hopefully get confirmation in the coming minutes of that SRC location. Tim Preiser pointing at the screen now, wondering if he has any more information for us on where that sample return capsule location would be. We do have visual confirmation of that parachute, as I mentioned. Rich Witherspoon radioing out to the team, and now we have a view from our helicopter of the landing location. You can see the sample return capsule dead center of your screen, that kind of dark gray black object right there. And then just to the right of it, a little below, is our parachute. It appears to be resting on the surface. We're getting a zoom now from our NASA helicopter, and you can see now the SRC. At last, we have the training range. I'm sure that is a pleasant sight for the team to see.
Recovery operations. UL2 has visual on the SRC. I repeat, SRC has been located.
And we have visual on that SRC. It appears that the parachute has also disconnected. It's a little bit off from that SRC, disconnecting from the back shell. The SRC appears to be resting on its nose, that heat shield that protected it the whole way down through that entry, descent, and landing. Lockheed is celebrating that moment. I'm sure they're breathing another sigh of relief here. It's been a wild morning for everyone involved. They've been up since the crack of dawn, just a little bit further north from us in Colorado. They gave the go command to actually release that SRC that you see on your screen right there from the Osiris-Rex spacecraft about 4 hours ago. It then entirely on its own, and now sits on its own for us here in the Utah Test and Training Range. So now that we have visual, the teams should be able to begin the recovery operations in just a few moments. As I mentioned, that first person on scene will be the on-scene commander, Stu Wiley. He'll be doing an environmental sweep. We're getting a nice close-up view. Parachute disconnected. You can see some of the wiring of it there, just a little bit off the edge of our SRC. The SRC looks quite charred up from that entry in. That was expected, as we heated up to temperatures over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit upon entry to Earth's atmosphere. You see that rugged terrain out there. Just a sweeping, very panoramic terrain at the Utah Test and Training Range. It's a great occasion for us to land this sample. The team looking a lot more lead than we actually have visual. And we should be in those recovery operations shortly. Inside the sample return capsule, pieces of the asteroid Bennu. We'll be getting access to those samples in just a few days. Actually, see what we got from the asteroid regolith. This mission continues to amaze me and everyone involved, and is ingenious with this mission. With a robotic explorer to the edge of the solar system, collecting that sample, safely stowing it, and then actually transporting it back here to Earth for us to open up and analyze. The surface today was probably a little bit soft, so it looks like it's resting a little bit far off the actual desert. It doesn't appear to have dug in too much with that nose cone from the heat shield. You are here with us as we witness this historic moment. It's the first time the United States has delivered samples from an asteroid to Earth. And these samples will be analyzed for decades to come in laboratories around the world. And there is landing of our first helicopter at the site. Appears to have a nice soft landing. We're just probably a couple hundred feet.
Recovery operations. Helo 1 has landed at the recovery site.
So our first helicopter, you just heard confirmation, and you can see visual confirmation of that landing. We're maybe about 100, 200 feet away, landing away from that sample. So a little bit of a hike for our team members to get out to that sample return capsule and begin our environmental sweep. As I mentioned, our on-scene commander, Stu Wiley, will be the first person of the team to actually approach this sample, check the area for any unexploded ordnances, UXOs, that could possibly be out there on the range, and then also make sure that that SRC is safe for our operations team to approach and begin recovery. You can see where that parachute disconnected from the top of that SRC. That is the back shield that you see right there at the very top, with that little bit of white wiring still coming out of the top. Our SRC perfectly landed there on the Utah Test and Training Range. So we're happening is the process of operations is a key moment of today's events to actually get that SRC out from out desert. Crucial, we made the pre sample that we got back from asteroid Bennu. It could hold the clues to how everything around us came to be, from the formation of the planets to origins of life here, so the team understands just how crucial the contents of that SRC is, and they're going to work as efficiently and as safely as possible to get that SRC contained, wrapped up in thermal blanketing, placed in a sample carrying fixture, and then attached with long line to our first helicopter there. It'll then be transported the long journey back here, a much more relaxing flight, I'm sure, for our SRC, to our portable clean room at Dugway, at which point the team members will extract the back shell and remove the heat shield from the SRC. It's served its purpose. We're mainly now concerned with getting the contents within that sample canister containing pieces of the asteroid regolith out of that SRC. We won't actually, as I mentioned, be opening that sample canister just yet here at Dugway. The team is simply focused on getting that SRC, or the sample canister rather, on a nitrogen purge, and this is to maintain that pristine nature, prevent any kind of contaminants from the atmosphere from getting into our sample within.
Recovery operations. Kilos 3 and 4 have been cleared to land at the recovery site.
And the team is closely behind, ready to land at the recovery site to begin operations. This will be simultaneous action that you'll see here once we have the clearance from Stu Wiley to begin our recovery operations. At least from this perspective, I'm not noticing really any drag marks or any kind of roll marks, but the team, once they approach, will mark any possible areas of interest where the SRC possibly came in contact with the rough desert terrain. All of these regions will be sampled by our recovery team and will be passed off to the sample curation team at the Johnson Space Center as they begin to unload and actually open up the sample canister there, exploring the contents within and making sure that no possible contaminants from the surrounding landing location got into our sample. We're getting a wider view now. We should have the helicopters that have landed nearby coming into view potentially. The team really taking extra precaution as they approach the SRC. As I mentioned, team member safety is paramount during these operations. There are possible potential areas of concern as the team begin these operations, including the temperature of that SRC. You see it looks quite charred there. It could still be a little bit warm. As I mentioned, it heated up to over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So as the cool desert air begins to cool down the SRC, we want to make sure that it is cool enough for our team to actually begin those recovery operations. We'll also be checking the gas levels of that SRC to make sure that it is not outgassing from the batteries within, heating up during that reentry. We'll also be making sure that there is no live voltage present. And we see a view now from our high altitude plane that has one of those helicopters landed nearby, just at the northern part of your. You can see one of them. Top of your screen there, it is centered up. There is our helicopter, and it appears that we have our on-scene commander potentially walking over. This is once again our high altitude WB-57 shot of our helicopters landed at the LZ, our landing zone. Can see some movement on the screen. Some might be approaching our SRS's point in those recovery operations, the initial safety sweep. We'll just be observing from this high altitude for the next coming minutes as the team actually will be setting up a camera on the ground for us to observe the recovery operations close up. And a note from one of the team members about the SRC itself. So they have approximately 40 hours. That is the amount of time it would take for any air to get into the sample. As I mentioned before, that sample return capsule is a complex network of piping and tubing inside of it, sort of like a labyrinth-like design, and that is intentional to make it incredibly difficult for any possible contaminants from the atmosphere to get into our sample canister. So sort of like a nesting doll, if you will, where it has multiple layers of protection, safe within. All of that protective layering, once we get the sample into the clean room, will be shed, and we'll be to actually access that sample canister within. The main goal, as I said, for today is to get that sample canister on a nitrogen purge. That is to maintain its pristine nature. And we have visual once again of our helicopters here orbiting around the landing location. You can see our SRC at the bottom left of your screen, and its parachute that helped us get the last leg of the journey down and deployed a little bit higher than we expected, 20,000 feet elevation. Original expectation was at about 5,000 feet. And this brought us down the last leg of the journey after a punishing initial entry into Earth's atmosphere over San Francisco, about 82 miles in altitude, now resting on the rugged Utah Test and Training Range desert floor.
Recovery operations. Recovery team in the vicinity. Beginning initial sessions.
So you just heard confirmation from Tim Preiser that the team is beginning to actually the SRC for that initial and safety sweep. You'll soon see our on-scene commander, Osiris-Rex, approaching that sample return capsule. As I mentioned before, he'll be checking for any possible unexploded ordnances. You can They have been seeing all of this morning's events, and they're going to continue. There we go on screen. You can see there's Stu Wiley, our on-scene commander, and right behind him is Victoria team. They're both wearing personal protective equipment, gas masks. That's for their own safety as they approach, as there could be potential outgassing from that sample return capsule's batteries heating up during re-entry. You can see him scanning the region. He's checking for any possible unexploded ordnances, UXOs.
Recovery operations. Oscar's performing the unexploded ordnance survey.
And you just heard that he is in fact doing that survey right now. You can see him walking around the SRC. This is the first person to come in contact with this SRC since it was on the other side of the solar system. I'd sent this on a long journey, the Osiris-Rex spacecraft. Finally delivering the sample, he is motioning over to Victoria team, who is surely going to approach and begin taking some gas and thermal readings. You can see her walking over and must have given the clear for her to proceed. A little bit closer. Stu continues to pace around the surrounding area. All over here, the team will collect samples. He'll begin to place flags. You can see in his backpack, he's got a couple flags waving in the breeze. Those will be placed at areas of interest for team members to sample and begin those recovery operations. Victoria is now appearing to take out her thermal and gas reading devices. She's taking an initial thermal reading of that SRC as we speak, looking for it to be at an operational temperature of around 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Lockheed Martin Safety is performing hazardous environment assessments.
You just heard that confirmation. So she is performing that hazardous environment assessment, checking the thermal temperature of that SRC. Taking any kind of gas readings to make sure that we are at safe operational levels. She is also leading over. This is Victoria team from Lockheed Martin. Stu continues to sweep the area around her for the safe operation of our recovery crew members. There are several nozzles, valves around the SRC, and so once Victoria has the clear to approach, she'll actually open up some of those valves and insert a gas reading device within to actually take some temperatures. And you can see off to the left of your screen, Stu Wiley is actually safing and stowing away that parachute that helped take us the last leg of the journey. It's great news that disconnected from the SRC. That allowed our SRC to rest as it is here on the surface of the Utah Test and Training Range. It appears with minimal dragging.
Recovery operations. Oscar is safing and storing the main parachute.
So Stu is going to get that parachute stowed, placed away, as Victoria is front and center on your screen, beginning to take some of those gas readings to make sure that we are not outgassing any kind of noxious chemicals that could be present from that battery heating up within the SRC. And Stu is walking back to the team, with that parachute. So the SRC battery is comprised of lithium disulfide, and as such, the possibility of toxic vapors exists if the battery packaging has been damaged during entry or landing. Discharging could cause potential presence of hydrogen sulfide from those batteries heating up, or carbon monoxide. And so that is why Victoria initially had her gas mask on. It appears she has now actually taken it off, so it appears that the gas readings indicate innate conditions.
Recovery operations, Lockheed Martin safety has confirmed no hazardous gas.
And you just heard that confirmation, so the safety assessment is successful. Victoria has confirmed that with her gas readings and thermal measurements of the SRC. They'll then go back over, Stu and Victoria, for a team huddle to prepare the rest of the team to begin the recovery operations and actually get this SRC into our clean room here at Dugway. As you can see, the Lockheed Martin team, the bottom of your screen, just overjoyed by this moment. This is years of careful planning and preparation leading that sample back here to our clean rooms. I'm sure they've been holding their breath all morning, so they're getting closer to finally being able to take another breath and relax as we actually will begin our recovery operations, a key part of today's events. And you might see Victoria approach over once again to that SRC to continue to take gas. The back shell of that SRC. Place over. SRC capsule. The sample return capsule, rather. She'll also be checking for any possible voltage. Capped on tape around the two cut cable ends protruding from the back of the SRC where that parachute deployed. You can see her with that covering as we speak, placing it on the back shell. She has successfully placed that shielding on the back on the Teflon cover. Stu walking around behind. The rest of the scene, walking back with the parachute that he now has safely stowed away. And you'll see Victoria opening up couple gas valves on the SRC, taking those gas readings. She'll continue to disrupt the whole process. She's also placing covers on those gas vents too to prevent any kind of contamination from atmospheric particles, particulates entering into that SRC. She's photographing the scene as well too. This is to keep careful note of exactly the procedures that she's going through for her team. So the recovery operations will be getting underway shortly now that the team has initial environmental safety sweep. Everything appears to be nominal, which is fantastic. We do, in fact, have that SRC on the ground. The rest of the team will be approaching shortly. But back to you, Lauren and Jim.
Wow, thank you, James.
Oh,
Can you believe it?
Touchdown for science. What a great humanity. So
This is so huge. We're all being a sigh of relief. Obviously, we're not completely out of the woods here. We'll be monitoring what's going on and keeping you abreast of everything that's happening.
A great job of that craft.
Fantastic.
What a spacecraft. We have to name her specially.
Yes, absolutely. And that capsule, everything perfect. So while the capsule was making its way to the ground, mission teams
Recovery operations, all vent covers are in place.
All right, so we're making
good.
progress.
We're making progress.
All right, so while the capsule was making its way to the ground, mission teams in the Colorado control room and the mission ops area here in Utah were, of course, riveted by the live images. These teams have watched and nurtured this mission for more than 7 years of spaceflight, and even longer in terms of construction and design. Gosh, wow. Amazing.
11 years it was selected to fly. What a job, folks.
Just fantastic. A lot's happened in 7 years. All right, so let's get an update from where the action started this morning. Sophia, tell us everything.
Okay, firstly I want to say we are so grateful that the capsule is on the ground and in good hands now. Now from here, from Wig Mountain, I am overlooking the vast landing zone, which again is larger than the state of Rhode Island. So, during that time, listening to James's commentary of the capsule coming through our atmosphere, we're all standing on the edge here, looking and scanning through the sky. But just to give you some context again of where I am, I'm about 4,000 feet up, overlooking a vast, ancient seabed. So the mountains that are peppering along the edges over here, they are very muted colors. It's a beautiful pastel out there. And as we're looking over through the sky, it's hard to see because there's alkaline dust from this ancient seabed. And considering that the capsule has landed on the edge of the landing zone, even though I'm as close as I could possibly be, I didn't see anything over here. I will say I'm a little disappointed, but grateful that that capsule is in the most capable hands it can be, and that is the most important thing out here. So I didn't see with my eyes myself, we saw on the screen, and it's still a great day. So back to you, Lauren.
Wow, thank you, Sophia. And thankfully we got that great image. Just well done to that team. Thank you for that. So while we're keeping an eye on ongoing operations to prep for our SRC transport, we have a special message from someone who keeps a close eye on the entire manifest of the space agency's travels around the solar system.
Hey, to the Osiris-Rex team, you did it. You designed it, you built it, and you carried out the first mission to collect a sample from an asteroid. After a 2-year journey, it has touched down at the Utah desert. It brought something extraordinary, the largest asteroid sample ever received on Earth. Help scientists investigate planet formation. It's going to improve our understanding of asteroids that could possibly impact the Earth, and it'll deepen our understanding of the origin of our solar system and its formation. This mission proves that NASA does big things, things that inspire us, things that unite us.
Recovery operations, we can confirm that the SRC is not breached.
Beyond our reach. And the mission continues with incredible science and analysis going to come. But I want to thank you all for everybody that made this Osiris-Rex mission possible. It wasn't mission impossible. It was the impossible became possible. Thank you all.
And just as a reminder, we are keeping those operational milestones going, so you will continue to hear that throughout the broadcast. Thankfully, the SRC was not breached. Fantastic, fantastic news. All right, as anyone who pays just even a little attention to modern spaceflight knows, there has been more activity above the planet in recent years than ever before in human history. There are probes like Osiris-Rex moving system, joining us.
We are honored to be here.
Super exciting day. Congratulations.
Absolutely historic. How are you feeling?
Pretty amazing.
It's like, wow, this is what, dreams and imagination is fueled with. This is just amazing. So, it can go from the movies, but this is reality, and we're doing things that people couldn't even believe could happen. It's amazing. Yeah.
And also, we both landed under capsule, under parachutes. There's not much better feeling when that parachute opens. I'm telling you. And it was maybe not equal, but pretty close to exciting and intense. And that parachute opened. Oh, it was thrilling. Absolutely thrilling. Yep. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, that is fantastic. And one of the things that I think will be really interesting is this, of course, this site is being considered as one of the candidates for the Boeing Starliner approved flight.
Right, and that's actually why we're here. It just worked out in our timing for our training and as we're working on Starliner, that we could come and actually view one of our prime landing sites, which is here at Dugway. And so that's actually what brought us to the area, so we could be here and sharing the experience with you today.
And we see this has gone so well, we are ready to land.
Recovery operations.
That's the place that our flight
The recovery team is performing their safety
This is beautiful.
This is a beautiful day this morning. You know, no wind. I think the capsule just came right down under the chute, and hopefully we'll have just like this capsule too.
Absolutely. And we just got out that the recovery team is performing their safety operations. Phenomenal.
So you guys will be coming back maybe someday with samples yourself, brought back by humans.
Indeed.
What do you think about that?
Again, we're in that era of going beyond lower Earth now with humans, you know, headed back to Moon and potentially one day to Mars. Awesome. The Artemis program. And it is a time, as you mentioned earlier, so much taking place within the system, the near solar system now, and it's fascinating. Great time to be in human space.
Awesome.
I think I'd be a little bit nervous to go to an asteroid, so I'm super glad. And we'll taste and show it. But I think maybe more before we. It's a dangerous environment learning about it. So
Sonia, Butch, thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully you'll stick around for more show. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Good luck with your flight.
If you just joined us, this is special live coverage of NASA's Osiris-Rex asteroid sample return mission. You might be thinking, this doesn't look like a typical NASA facility. And it's not. In fact, because of the extraordinary capabilities that we find here, that we find ourselves in the Utah desert in the first place. We're coming to you live from Army's Dugway Proving Ground. We've got a video postcard to share that will give you a better sense of the glorious desert environment all around us. Take a look. Wow, absolutely gorgeous. This is your vast, rugged, beautiful. I mean, you got to see it from the NASA helicopter, but that was a close-up in person.
And look at this. We're in this place that almost looks like Mars, but on Earth is where we're cutting a capsule with the pieces of our universe that will tell us about the early time of our solar system. We can't get it anywhere else. And there's the crew there approaching that beautiful capsule that did the joyful ride from the atmosphere down. 13 minutes of roller coaster riding, and they're getting it safe and ready to start back here to come over to the clean room here.
Wow. And explain, why do we do a landing, as opposed to ocean landing?
So many of our crews land in the ocean, as you know from Apollo. But this one, we need to bring it back to a place where we can contain the contamination. By landing in the desert here, we can keep the Earth's ocean, all those absolutely wonderful water. This is the best place to bring home this kind of capsule. And look at her. She landed perfectly. Looks like a top sitting there.
Absolutely gorgeous. Well, this isn't the first time that NASA has visited Dugway, and it certainly won't be the last. Take a look. When bringing a sample of the cosmos back to Earth, it's important to find a good landing zone that won't compromise the sample. That's why NASA partnered with the Army's Dugway Proving Ground. Its vast open space makes it ideal for the task. Osiris-Rex is neither the first nor the last mission to land here. In 2004, the Genesis mission landed here at Dugway, delivering our first ever samples of solar wind. In 2006, NASA landed at Dugway again, this time with a mission called Stardust, which gathered samples of interstellar dust. Both of these missions helped fuel our understanding of the universe and wouldn't have been possible without a safe landing zone, just like Osiris-Rex. After today, NASA and Dugway are looking towards the future, to the Mars sample return mission that once again be a unique sample of our universe right here to Dugway Proving Ground. The U.S. Army and Air Force have been excellent hosts to us for months as we've been preparing for today's landing. one of many reasons I'm so pleased to welcome Colonel James Harwell, Army Commander here at Dugway Proving Ground.
Recovery operations.
Oh.
Nominal SRC recovery operations have
All right,
begun.
giving an update. Okay. All right, nominal SRC recovery operations have begun. Okay.
You darn good.
All right. Okay, so today could not have gone any better. How did it, I mean, in large part due to our amazing partners here with the military, how did it look from your end?
Oh, it looked amazing. When you talk about partnerships, this isn't just a Dugway Proving Ground effort. Though you're sitting here on Dugway Proving Ground, the capsule actually landed on the Air Force's Utah Test and Training Range, and so it's going to be brought here to Dugway before it goes to the clean room. So this is a larger effort than just the Army's Dugway.
And it looks like it might have landed right.
So I got a note just before this from the commander of the Utah Test and Training Range that it did land on Uter. And so there was a little bit of rivalry there. We were hoping, but it looks like it was on Uter.
Right on the boundary, though.
Yeah.
So close.
So we have a big collaboration at NASA with members of from the Army and Navy, from the military services that have given us the opportunity to go to these great places in space ourselves as people. And can you tell us a little about the training and other fantastic things you do prepares these people to be crew for flight into space?
Yeah, so if you look at it, the Army is the greatest leadership lab in the world, the types of problems that we have to solve on a day-to-day basis. And we have some of the best workforce that is available. So here at Dugway Proving Ground, we do chemical and biological defense testing. We're part of the Army's Test and Evaluation Command. And so anytime a piece of equipment is going to go into a service member's hands, it's tested by one of our amazing members of our workforce. But we also do training here. And so it gives a chance for folks to come and do things in a realistic environment. And that really allows them to hone those problem-solving skills.
So that's why the crews are so good who come from the Army and the Navy and the Air Force.
Yeah, we'd like to point out it was an Army astronaut this week who went over who set the record.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, we couldn't let you go without wishing you a very happy birthday today. Happy birthday. Today's your birthday, and you got a piece of the solar system. How about that?
I don't think I could have gotten a better present from NASA.
No. This is the rarest stuff we've ever.
It is, and I mean, when we're talking about the origins of life, and that's one of the I have the coolest job in the world. A couple months ago, I was here, and out on the Utah Test and Training Range, we got to go out to an archaeological site and see 12,000-year-old footprints. And now we're going to get to see the material from the origins of the solar system. I think we've set the bar pretty high. My kids think I'm cool today. I don't know what we're going to do to top this.
Well, we think you're pretty cool.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us. We've really loved having you.
Thank you so much.
We have a saying at NASA that the only way to reach the stars is if we all go together. The Osiris-Rex team represents pros at the top of their game, but future explorers are just now finding inspiration in today's events. Here at the Dugway Proving Ground, students attending public school can literally say that a sample of an asteroid landed in their backyard. We visited the school to hear their thoughts about the mission and how their teachers hope it might influence their dreams of future exploration.
My name is Deborah Ross, and I am the librarian here at Dugway Elementary through High School. I love that Dugway is part of this. We have a very strong feeling about Dugway. It's a wonderful base to have it be a prominent area where this is coming down is really amazing to us.
Well, I'm just glad that this little town is getting noticed. It's a big rock that has kind of like holes in it because they've been flying through the sky with ion. Because it goes really fast.
Honestly, I find it really cool because you don't really expect this stuff to happen, you know, in your backyard. But I really wish I could see it, but I don't know. I'm going to try my hardest.
I became interested in the mission because I have the NASA app, and I get daily updates on photos, and one day I saw a photo that had that Dugway, Utah titled on it, and I was like, I live there. You hear about exciting things all over the world, and it's cool to hear about, but you kind of never think that you'll be, I guess, directly or indirectly involved with it. But to know that it's just happening here within eyesight is pretty cool.
Let's go, Osiris-Rex!
Go, Osiris-Rex!
Let's go, Osiris-Rex!
Let's go, Osiris-Rex!
Go, Osiris-Rex!
let's go, Osiris-Rex. I love that energy.
I do too.
All right, Jim, you're a planetary geologist. How did you get into this? I mean, these kids are just at the beginning of thinking about what their career might be. I mean, how did you do this?
I think all kids are intrinsically curious at birth. My mother was interested in space at birth. I don't know how she knew. But in any event, I think we all are, and we follow different pathways. If you see things as beautiful as we have here in Dugway, here in Utah, you'll be inspired by the rocks and the things in space, like these special samples we've brought back, which are unique being from Bennu, but not unique in the kinds of materials we have here on Earth, thanks to other asteroid returns. These are the biggest we've ever done, and so we're excited. But I think curiosity is in all of us, and so that's really what it's all about. And these kids are ready to pick up on this energy.
Yeah, we need that future generation. All right, let's get an update from James. James, go ahead.
Yeah, Lauren, so the mission operations team has confirmed that we are able to begin those recovery operations. You've been seeing on your screen in the bottom corner for the past couple minutes, team members beginning to head out and put flags of areas of interest where we'll want to sample for our sample curation team. And also just a note on our parachute deployment, the parachute was set to deploy based on capsule deceleration, and we actually reached that threshold earlier than predicted, and the parachute deployed appropriately, so everything was right there, working perfectly fine. That SRC, as you can see, successfully on the ground. It is perfectly resting on the desert terrain, and you see 3 of our team members around that capsule beginning to place flags to begin to collect samples. The team members here you see on screen are Scott Sanford, Dante Loretta, the principal investigator at the right of your screen there, and Francis McCubbin. These are key curation team members who will help us actually get a lot of these samples of the region there, environmental samples collected and ready to be passed along to our team at the Johnson Space Center for curation efforts there. This is, again, a very key part of the mission. We want to make sure that there is no contamination of that sample return capsule from any possible atmospheric or environmental conditions out at that landing zone, that landing site. And so we're going to continue these operations and actually begin to scoop up some of the samples. And this will work like a well-oiled machine. You'll see in a few moments. Dante, who was just on your screen a few moments ago, is wearing an armband, much like a football quarterback, if you will. He'll actually be kind of reading off the play calls as they go out and go step by step to actually scoop into the terrain about an inch down into the surface of the desert, scooping out a little bit of the rock and dust that's there, placing it into a bag, photographing the whole process along the way, making note of exactly where they collected that sample from. All will then be passed along to our sample curation team at the Johnson Space Center as they begin to actually open up that sample canister and see exactly what we got within. This has been a long journey. It's been an incredible morning to witness this live. Just such a stunning feat of engineering to get that capsule back here to Earth with samples of the asteroid Bennu. This is why we do science, right? To get these kinds of samples, every piece of dust and rain inside that sample return capsule is a PhD thesis waiting to be written. It's a new discovery waiting for us about the origins of the solar system and our place in it. And the vast majority of that sample, more than 70% of that sample, is actually going to be stowed away for future analysis. We did the same exact thing with the Apollo missions when we brought back rocks from the a large quantity of those rocks and dust from the moon our astronauts brought back were stowed away for future generations. The expectation that our technology will continue to improve and improve and improve, and then we'd be able to ask questions that we couldn't even begin to fathom. And now the same thing we'll be doing with the Osiris-Rex samples that we brought back from the asteroid Bennu. A lot of these will be opened up 50 years from now with scientists to be born, asking questions we can't even begin to imagine. So our team is just huddling off screen. Recovery operations will begin. You'll see a number of team members come out here. They'll be carrying with them a carrying fixture. It's a large metal fixture that has been perfectly designed to have our SRC resting within. They'll be bringing out a lot of thermal blanketing that will be used to protect our SRC during its flight back to the clean room here. Again, we want to make sure that that SRC is safe, any kind of possible contamination from the atmosphere. So they're going to do an excellent job of actually wrapping this SRC up and getting it prepared to transport to our portable clean room. That actual operation of getting that SRC bagged and stowed and ready to go on our long line operation for the helicopter will be a rather quick operation. As you see some team members from Lockheed Martin. Their role is largely finished for today. They were operating a lot of the flight of that SRC, getting it to the ground, and now they can really just take a step back and relax, catch their breath after all the chaos of the morning. Very exciting moment for all of them, I'm sure, to actually see their creation sitting on the surface of the Utah Test and Training Range. Just massive, massive sigh of relief. So as I mentioned, that actual recovery of the SRC will be a relatively quick process, but members, including Dante Loretta, our principal investigator, might remain out on the site where you see that SRC on your screen now. They're going to continue to collect samples. You can see a number of flags placed around. There's some pink flags placed there. There are 4 placed in front of the SRC where the team believes the SRC is potentially dragged along the surface as it came to a rest on the Utah Test and Training Range desert surface. On the back of that SRC are 4 additional pink flags, and those are regions for control sampling. We'll actually go and sample all of these regions and compare back to areas we believe the SRC did not contact. You can see additionally, it's a little bit hard to make out with the bright color of the desert, but there are a couple white flags present at the SRC. And these are areas of operation for the team to actually be able to walk up to the SRC with the carrying fixture, place it next to the SRC, and actually begin to bag and stow our sample return capsule transport to the double clean room. So it's been already just an incredible morning. We're now about an hour past landing of the Osiris-Rex sample return capsule. Just a few years ago, our spacecraft, our intrepid robotic explorer, was 200 million miles away from us on the other side of the solar system. It successfully captured a sample of the asteroid Bennu, stowed it away, and transported it on the long 1.2 billion mile journey to us here on Earth. We experienced an incredible entry, descent, and landing as this team that you see on screen here, the Lockheed Martin team, a couple hours before our broadcast started, gave the green light to go to actually release the sample return capsule containing pieces of the asteroid Bennu. It then floated on its own through the vacuum of space for about 4 hours before coming in contact with the atmosphere over the San Francisco, California Bay Area, traveling at just over 27,000 miles per hour and heating up to over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit as it encountered the incredible drag forces our Earth's atmosphere presents. We then slowed down under our drogue parachute initially, which kept us stable during our descent down to the Utah Test and Training Range. And then ultimately, at about 20,000 feet off the deck, we gave the command to deploy our main parachute, that orange creamsicle color parachute that has now actually already been stowed away by our team members here at the Utah Test and Training Range. It's been a really wild journey. Very excited to have our SRC on the ground. And you see a view of our mission operations team observing our recovery team that is already out on the landing zone, taking samples, beginning to actually prepare the thermal blanketing, the protective layers for our SRC, and you can see we're documenting this whole process along the way. And so these operations will continue a couple months as long as it takes to safely store the SRC and prepare for long-line operations to get it here, continue to take samples, and I will continue to monitor the situation.
And so if our signal is breaking up, it's because we're out in the middle of nowhere. So we're going to be out there. What I wanted to address really quickly is that parachute ended up deploying really quickly, did it not, Jim?
It did. It deployed high, and this is a smart spacecraft. That sample return capsule detected the acceleration rate, and it decided that it was important to get that parachute out, slow down, so we could make this beautiful safe landing. And that's the way that this magical autonomous flight works these days. We adjust to the dynamics of the environment. Again, hats off to the engineers that built those systems in so we could be home safe doing what you can see on your screen now.
With a beautiful landing. All right. Take some social questions now. Let's get our first one. All right. At CCSV wants to know, will the sample be quarantined like moon rocks are?
Well, in this case, based on the classification of what we call the planetary protection, these samples will not be quarantined in that way. The first moon rocks came back, they were quarantined for a week, out on the carrier and all that kind of good stuff, came back to Houston again very carefully. In this case, we understand the asteroid environment. We measured it with Osiris-Rex, other asteroid samples from our colleagues in Japan, and so we don't have to quarantine them the same way. We do have to protect them, though, from contamination, and there's all kinds of systems in place by our team to allow us to understand the level of contamination. So what we study in science is the pristine asteroid?
That was a great question.
Excellent question.
Excellent question.
Because of the operations, SRC is bagged and secured in the handling fixture.
All right, you just heard that the SRC has been bagged, and we are well on our way to getting that to our clean room here at Dugway. Wow, fantastic news. Missions like Osiris-Rex transform scientific pursuits into engineering challenges. Smart, curious people with pursue answers with creative verve and perseverance. This year, Hollywood also had a story about a crowd of people situated around the touchdown point of an asteroid. And well, we couldn't help ourselves. We asked the cast of Asteroid City to say a few words. All right, well, it looks like we are having some technical difficulties. That's okay. We'll definitely get you that video. It's a really fun one.
It is.
Scarlett Johansson, I mean, A-lister,
Yes.
Can you imagine? All right, so let's get an update from our field correspondent, Sophia. Sophia, do you have an update for us?
Okay, Lauren, turns out the landing site really is just over my shoulder. It is just so hard to see through the alkaline particulate out here on the landing zone. But you know what? This is all in great hands, and we are just very thrilled that the capsule is doing well today. So I'm able to see one of the helicopters just circling over there. But for those of you who have just tuned in, I am on Wake Mountain, which is overlooking the ellipse, which is the vast landing zone. And earlier today, the helicopters, which were shuttling our teams of experts and our scientists, departed from here via helicopter once they found out exactly where the capsule landed, and now they're off on their recovery process and are doing what they do, which has been a carefully rehearsed process. So Lauren, I'm going to send it back to you.
Great, thank you so much, Sophia. All right, let's get back to that awesome video of Asteroid City. You don't want to miss this. Take a look.
I'm Jason Schwartzman.
I'm Jake Ryan.
And I'm Scarlett Johansson.
Where are you? Asteroid City, Farm Route 6, mile 75.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeffrey Wright. Junior stargazers and space cadets. Each year, another pathway.
Town for a junior stargazer convention.
I heard that there's a real-life reason we'll be gathering in the Utah desert this September.
The world will never be the same.
What is happening there on September 24th?
September 24th is going to be a historic day. This is NASA's first asteroid sample return mission and the biggest sample return beyond the moon. Shortly before 9 a.m. local time, the Osiris-Rex spacecraft, carrying precious samples of asteroid Bennu, will release the capsule into the atmosphere to lower the samples down to the Utah desert, where scientists are anxiously awaiting the return of these materials.
Wow, that sounds like the plot of a science fiction film.
It's incredible that a spacecraft can go to an asteroid.
Grab pieces of it and then bring them to Earth. So what will NASA look for within the asteroid sample?
These pristine asteroid materials will be studied by scientists around the world. We're going to be looking at the minerals. We're going to be dissecting the rocks, looking at mineral grain by mineral grain to learn more about how the solar system formed and evolved. We're also going to be looking for water to try to understand how our Earth's oceans came to be. And then finally, we're going to be looking at organic compounds, including some of the basic chemical building blocks of life, to try to understand whether asteroids like Bennu could have delivered the building blocks to Earth, leading to the origin of life on Earth and potentially elsewhere. With the data we obtained from these materials, we're going to be rewriting the textbooks on solar system formation.
Fascinating stuff. Don't fragments of asteroids land on Earth all the time? Why can't we study those pieces of a mission to bring this sample to Earth?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, in fact, the Earth is constantly being bombarded by fragments of asteroids in the form of meteorites. But one of the big problems with studying meteorites is you don't always know where they came from, and it also can be contaminated.
Fair enough. It makes sense that we want to study something more pristine.
How will NASA protect the sample once it's on Earth? And can I have some?
Oh, I wish we could have some of these samples. I wish I could bring them home with me and put on my dresser at home. But the reality is, these samples will only be for educational purposes in scientific research. The samples will be transported to the NASA's Johnson Space Center, where they built a special curation facility just for keeping these samples in pristine.
This is also incredible. I'm so glad that NASA has teams of people for the answers to some of the biggest questions, like where did water come from?
Osiris-Rex.
Wow, talk about that mega wattage star.
Whoa, Scarlet,
Oh
wow.
my gosh. It takes a huge talented team with profoundly diverse skills to design and execute something as audacious as Osiris-Rex. It takes years of planning and perseverance to see through from initial notepad doodle to a moment when the world tunes in to celebrate a huge success. It also takes leadership, and I'm pleased to say that we are now joined by the Director of NASA Goddard Space Center, Dr. Mackenzie Lestrip. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here and very excited about the results coming out today.
It is a great day indeed, and congratulations. This is a huge day for Goddard. You're very proud.
Absolutely. This team is amazing. They've been through so much for so long. Goddard Space Flight Center, the special thing about NASA's Science Center Goddard is that we have scientists and engineers working side by side, and so that doodle on a napkin can turn into something like Osiris-Rex. And scientists like Dr. Garvin here, who joined us, really help us create a vision with other scientists of how we're going to do the engineering that gets you to this moment that we have today.
And Nancy, we have leadership across all domains, from system engineering to science to accounting to how did Maryland?
You have people have parts of gens for desks. Engineering critical. It's one of the Goddard really brings to the table, and systems engineering means that we take into account everything about the mission, from the science ideas to launch to orchestrating the landing here on Earth, but making sure that all of the instruments are working together, making sure that the spacecraft successfully interfaces with the instruments and can carry out its job once it was at Bennu. All of that requires really understanding the entire system. So when we say systems engineering, we're really talking about that overarching holistic perspective that our scientists and our engineers bring to the table. But it's true that we have some of the greatest scientists and engineers working on space missions, and they pull it off every time.
Awesome.
Well, really quickly here, Goddard will be one of the centers that will receive a sample, but who else will receive a sample of the asteroid?
Samples are really traveling all around the world. What I think is very exciting about this mission is that we're saving about 75%, and we're not sending that out yet. We're keeping that in storage for future generations to be able to use more advanced methods and instruments to be able to analyze. So about 25% of that material is going to be headed to scientific organizations all around the globe.
Fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Well, thank you so much for
Thanks,
joining us this
Mackenzie.
morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Yes.
There's a big team of scientists, engineers, and so many others here in Utah working to make Osiris a success. It should go without saying, everyone here is mission critical, from bus drivers to planetary geologists, helicopter pilots to logistics experts. With all of the national excitement about the mission itself, let's stop for a few minutes and highlight those in Osiris-Rex who made it live and breathe. Take a look. boy, it's really hard to get a little emotional when you see all those faces. These are people that we've been seeing over the last few days, and they're getting their time in the sun. All right, let's throw it over to James for an operational update. Take it away, James.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So we've been waiting for the past couple of minutes here. The team has actually successfully bagged and prepared the sample return capsule for the long line operations. You can see on your screen right now, the SRC is bagged in thermal blanketing, and that metal thing you see on the bottom is the carrying fixture. This will then be actually loaded up into cargo netting and prepared for long line operation. One of our helicopters will take flight, carrying the SRC dangling beneath it. The SRC is going to be stabilized with that cargo netting. There is a gimbal that will keep it stable as we begin the flight to the clean room with our precious cargo on board. You'll notice a couple of tape markers on that SRC as well, the thermal blanking there. Those are pieces of Kapton tape marking exactly where vents are on that SRC for team members here at the clean room, who will once again do gas and thermal readings once it arrives at the clean room. Just once again, make sure team members are safe and secure as we begin to continue these recovery operations, getting the SRC into the clean room. And this is one of the last phases of the process of getting our SRC back and then opening it up, finally seeing that sample capture within, and preparing that for shipment tomorrow on a C-17 cargo plane to the Johnson Space Center's sample curation facility. And this was a very quick process. I mean, at home, this was only maybe about 20 minutes that they took to get out there once they arrived and wrap everything up really quickly once they were given the official confirmation to approach, get everything stored, prepared for those long line operations. This really has become second nature for these team members. They really are able to bag and prepare this SRC, and you'll see still quite a few flags around that area there. Once this SRC is away from the region, the landing zone, team members from the curation team will remain on site and continue to take samples of that surrounding area. They also have set up off screen here, you can't see it, but there is a air reading that they're going to be taking actual air samples, atmospheric samples. All of them will be cross-correlated with samples that we actually get back from the asteroid Bennu to make sure that nothing from Earth here at the LZ beyond got into that return capsule. Team members who are going to be taking those samples want to get approaching the location. Dante Loretta is front and center with them. He has that armband on, and on his left arm, you can see it there, as he's carrying his bucket that has all of his tools that he needs to begin collecting these samples. It's a very procedure that they have to go through to make sure that they are properly taking these samples. You can see they are photographing the area first, documenting exactly where they are collecting the sample from. They then have a small metal scooper that they'll use to actually dig into the desert surface. It's a bit of a soft surface out there today. As I mentioned, we did have some rain that softened it up, so it should be easy to dig in there, grab a bit of sample, and then they will bag that sample, seal it up, and then send that off to the sample curation team at the Johnson Space Center. Admiring the region as well. It's a beautiful, clear morning there today. We've been rehearsing in a variety of different conditions, including in the middle of the where temperatures were over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, much cooler conditions. You can see our team members wearing their UV shirts today. A much chillier morning for them as they are doing these recovery operations. And this process does take some time as they go through and collect these samples. They want to make sure that they are accurately documenting exactly what's present at this landing zone for the team members who are at the sample curation facility of the Johnson Space Center. We're getting a great aerial view from our NASA helicopter. They've been doing a phenomenal job all morning tracking action. We don't give them enough credit. We've been training, obviously, all of the science and
recovery operations. The recovery team is moving the SRC to helicopter 1 and preparing for long line operations.
And there we have it. We are going to move line operations. The rest of the team members approaching that SRC that has been successfully bagged and prepared to be loaded into the helicopter's long line. This will be the SRC takes flight. We had a wild flight this week. You can see two team members lifting that SRC up. It's about 120 pounds total once you have the SRC and the carrying fixture there together. They're going to be walking this over, preparing it for targeting, and getting that attached to the long line for helicopter operations. And as I mentioned, this is the last the SRC is going to be taking flight. It had a hard journey this morning coming through the Earth's atmosphere at over 27,000 miles per hour. It is now being carried carefully by a couple team members here. So quite a deceleration from that initial entry, and really just a wonderful final journey for our sample before it is opened up at the clean room and prepared to be shipped to this to the curation facility at Johnson. And as I mentioned, this view is coming from one of our NASA helicopters. Just like the science and engineering teams have been preparing for this key moment, our NASA helicopter pilots have also been preparing to cover today's events. They're typically down at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, capturing launch coverage from Cape Canaveral. But this past couple months, they've been out here with us at the Utah Test and Training Range, preparing to document today's events, getting incredible footage for us all along the way. You can see those team members have a bit of a hike to carry it to where it is safe operationally. And you can see we have the cargo netting already laid out there. Our representative from the Jasmine Nakayama is prepared with that cargo netting. She's going to come here, get that SRC that has already been successfully bagged up with thermal wrapping into that cargo netting, and you can see the helicopter already there staged and ready to lift off. The helicopter pilot has actually removed one of the doors on that helicopter so he can lean out and look down as he carefully lifts the SRC off the terrain. We want to make sure that this is a careful, slow process as we safely transport this SRC to the Dugway clean room. You can see he's picking up pieces of the cargo netting and beginning to wrap the SRC. Been placed already on the carrying fixture with the thermal blanketing. Team members observing their handiwork of getting that carefully wrapped up. We'll then actually unwrap all of that thermal blanketing once we actually get it into the clean room here.
Recovery operations. SRC's in the cargo net, and all the gear has been stowed in the helicopter.
Great news. Everything sounds nominal for helicopter operations, and in just a few moments we should have liftoff of that SRC aboard the helicopter with that long line attached area to make sure that we can safely take off with our helicopter. These helicopter pilots have also been training in tandem with all the team members the past couple months leading up to this key moment. We've practiced these long line operations. We've practiced the flight back to the waiting room. But obviously nothing to the real deal. I'm sure they are feeling the excitement. They are feeling the nerves as they know how precious their cargo is this morning that they're transporting to the clean room. See Jasmine is donning a helmet, and rotors are kicking on for our helicopter. Kicking off some dust as they get up to speed there. It is a dusty morning out on the desert. And this will be, once again, a very slow, deliberate operation. We want to make sure that sample return capsule is safe as we are lifting off. The piece that Jasmine is holding in her hand right now is that gimbal stabilizer for the cargo netting. That will ensure that the SRC is not wildly spinning as we get to altitude with our helicopter. These helicopters can get upwards of over 100 miles an hour speed, but we're going to go nowhere close to that today. We're going to be taking this at a slow pace, making sure that SRC can get back safely and securely to our Dugway clean room. You can see one of our photographers, Keegan Barber, taking some great pictures. I'm sure those will be phenomenal views of the operations that are going on just across the way from us at the training range. As soon as these rotor speed, our hair will around. The terrain is a little bit soft today. Team members were out here yesterday testing out the grounds and had practiced actually landing with some of the helicopters. Those skids on the helicopters got about an inch into the wet terrain. It's presumably dried a lot more today. It's the sunny, clear skies probably helped us out a bit, so it should be an easy lift off the helicopter to get into the air and help transport that SRC to the clean room. Off-screen, team members are presumably continuing to collect samples of the surrounding area, both environmental, soil samples, atmospheric samples. Well, just a great view here from our NASA helicopter. And in just a few moments, we should have a stunning view of our SRC lifting off the ground. No part of this SRC comes in contact with the helicopter. As I said, it's been stored in that thermal blanketing. There's multiple layers of that blanketing, as well as a tarp being placed over it. Now, it is also in that cargo netting, thanks to our Dugway representative, Jasmine Nakayama. She's then attached this whole contraption to a long line that will dangle about 100 feet below the helicopter. And I can see a lot of dust kicking up now. The engine's really revving up on that helicopter, and it is off the terrain in the air with the SRC in tow.
Recovery operations. Helicopter 1 is cleared to depart the recovery site with the SRC.
And we have clearance to depart the recovery site. This is a key moment of those recovery operations. We're already getting that SRC out of the landing zone and on its way to the Dugway clean room. In just a few moments, that SRC, with the long line attached, will be lifting off its landing zone. Jasmine assisting with that final part of the lift, and it is now airborne. As I mentioned, a much more relaxing flight for our SRC on its last leg of its journey. We are officially departing that landing zone. Recovery operations will continue out at the Dugway. See team members waving goodbye. And look at that view. This is a stunning view of our helicopter. This is a long journey ahead. As I mentioned, probably about 20 minutes of total flight time. We may lose signal as we head out there a bit, but for now we have a stunning view of our helicopter carrying the SRC below. And you can see that stabilizer is helping to keep that SRC nice and stable below. We'll continue to track this transport to the clean room. For now, back to you, Lauren and Jim.
Wow, check out that epic shot. Check it out.
What a ride.
Wow. All right, thanks, James. The science community has serious questions about asteroids like Bennu for a long time. What are they made of? Do they hold any clues about the absence of life on Earth or elsewhere? And what can they tell us about our past and potentially our future?
It's all about chemistry, Lauren.
It absolutely is. Well, fortunately, Jim, we are joined by somebody who specializes in the kind of you'd be hard-pressed to find outside of NASA. Jason Dworkin is the Osiris-Rex project scientist. Welcome.
Welcome, Jason.
Congratulations. What a historic day.
Oh,
You must be so
fantastic, yes. Relieved, invigorated, excited.
As
So
we
much
are.
work ahead of us.
Right.
Indeed, indeed.
Fun work.
Epic work.
Epic. You must be so excited to dig into the sample yourself. But what makes this sample? You know, we've continued to say that this is such an important sample from an asteroid. Why is it scientifically significant?
So Bennu is an ancient piece of the early solar system, a leftover component. It's a fragment of what happens when you make planets. And this rock is it contains the ingredients that happen when you make planets. That happens when you make. So by studying a sample from the leftovers of space, we can study from the leftovers of the formation of the Earth. Look at the chemistry in detail as you can only do on the ground, using instruments that are sometimes bigger than the let alone the rock and the spacecraft. So we can interrogate the compounds, the minerals in fine detail to understand how they interact with each other and how they could have led to the history of the solar system.
Forensic science at its best. But I have a question, Jason, because you're an expert in this. So we're going to save some of this sample so that future generations, future techniques, future people can learn from it. Look at our place in space.
Absolutely. That's one of the parts I find the most exciting is the work we do here will be available for scientists and come up with their own hypotheses, their own ideas, their own new techniques to look at the sample in new and exciting ways, just as we have the Apollo samples. A woman in my laboratory studied Apollo 16 and 17 samples that were collected before she was born, using techniques that were not invented in the 1970s to then answer questions that were thought of couldn't be answered. You mentioned forensics. We also have equipped future generations with the information to follow the chain of evidence from these construction of the spacecraft all the way to the collection now and then the distribution.
Awesome, Jason.
Wow, that is so cool.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Jason, good luck.
Careful handling of the asteroid sample is all about getting the most out of the huge effort to visit the object in the first place. Mission planners considered many destinations, but settled on Bennu. Let's learn more about why. Osiris-Rex was designed to retrieve a sample from asteroid Bennu and return it to Earth. So, of the more than 1 million known asteroids in our solar system, why Bennu? First, as a near-Earth asteroid, Bennu is easy to reach. It takes about 14 months to orbit the Sun and comes close to Earth once every 6 years. To get there, Osiris-Rex was launched in 2016 on an Atlas V rocket with a single booster and a Centaur upper stage. It also got a big assist from Earth's gravity in 2017, allowing it to match Bennu's orbital tilt. The second reason that Bennu was chosen was its size and spin rate. Bennu measured half a kilometer in diameter once every 4.3 hours, which was actually pretty slow compared to many smaller asteroids. This allowed Osiris-Rex to map Bennu's surface up close, and to match its velocity, briefly touch down, and collect the sample. Before Osiris-Rex arrived, scientists thought that Bennu's slow rotation meant low risk of flinging away most of its sampleable material. But shortly after arrival, Bennu was caught on camera ejecting hundreds of pebbles. It turns out that Bennu regularly sheds small particles, but it still had plenty of loose material left on its surface for sample collection. The third reason for choosing Bennu was its composition. We don't know what ingredients are present during the formation of life on Earth. Asteroids like Bennu serve as time capsules, preserving from the dawn of the solar system. Spectrometers on Osiris-Rex confirm that Bennu is rich in carbon-based molecules, including organics that are the stuff of life. When the Bennu sample is analyzed, it will help scientists to better understand the formation of the solar system and its own origins. So why this particular asteroid? Proximity to Earth, the right size and spin, and a carbon-rich composition. That is why we chose Bennu. As you can see in the bottom of your screen, that SRC is continuing transit to the clean room.
Awesome.
All right, so turning our attention back to the rocks in the box, I have to ask him, how did they get it in here? What is this?
So this is the TAG-SAM sampler head. It's about 1 foot long. It looks like an old Chevy carburetor, but inside is something much more precious. Inside, maybe 250 or more grams of that primitive material from the asteroid, and it has all the gear on it, including on a little pad, grabs the sample, as well as the side that contains the bigger and all the dust. Even has witness plate. We do that technician called that Jason was talking about. This is the box.
This is the big deal right here. And you know, the material went into this box. We've actually got some of what's called simulant here, and this is obviously not the actual sample from Bennu, but it is a good approximation. Is that right, Jim?
That's right. And so what we discovered on this amazing mission was the material properties and the microgravity of asteroid Bennu didn't behave like we totally expected. They behaved like an almost cohesionless fluid. And so while I pour this here and they flow up naturally, expect inside the sampler head flowed more like water on Earth than we expected there on the asteroid. This is new physics. We didn't know that was going to happen. And these rubble pile asteroids are teaching us something at every step. In fact, some of these bits, which are simulants here, may behave more like little balls of styrofoam than the kind of rocks we have here. So we're going to learn new stuff by just doing basic characterization of the good this sampler head.
And one thing I think is so cool is that, you know, on Earth it poured directly into this other beaker here, but it acted almost more like fluid.
Exactly. We actually, when we took this sampler head on the TAG-SAM, we pushed it into the asteroid, gave it a poke, let loose the gas, and let the stuff flow. We actually penetrated 50 centimeters. That's more than almost 2 feet. So we went deep into the asteroid, fired our thrusters, and backed away with the sample intact in this sampler head. That was cool. We didn't expect that. We expected contact 5 seconds later, grab the good stuff, and come home.
Right.
So dynamic interactions, learning about how these objects work, different places. This is how we get to understand the worlds that we need for.
And I've even heard this described as
here a mile away.
fantastic. Well, now that the team is bringing the SRC back to the clean room here in Utah, what can we expect?
So the next step is really important. Well, we'll have special apparatus that's carrying sample return canister with this thing inside it, right to the clean room, bring it in, take off the elements of the aerosol. That's the thermal protection system in the shell. We'll take those off, set up the plumbing to get the nitrogen purge on this particular iPad. That's critical.
All right, what's next? All right, let's get an update from our gal in the field. Take it away, Sophia.
Let's put these puppies down.
Things are much quieter over here now, but for those of you who are just tuning in, this is where the helicopters departed that were our teams of experts that are now having been through a large part of the recovery process today. But really, that's all I have for your updates here from Wig Mountain, overlooking that vast. But if you do see miles away from the live broadcast hangar, and it took me 30 minutes to get that 12.5 miles, and that gives you an idea how long it takes to traverse get that safely to the clean room. I luckily had a chance to talk to the pilots of those helicopters just the other day, so let's take a look. The Osiris-Rex sample return capsule just endured a lengthy 3.8 billion mile journey. But the adventure doesn't end once it touches down. The landing zone itself is so large and the terrain so difficult to navigate that the recovery team delivers the capsule to the clean room by helicopter.
Joe's going to be the man hauling the capsule out on the long line. And then Ryan McDonald is another member, and he will be hauling scientists along with myself, the rest of the capture team.
So Ben, can you tell me about the actual procedure of taking the capsule on the long line?
It's a 100-foot long synthetic line. It's got an electrical cord with it. That will hook on the belly of the helicopter. There you go. Point it out.
Right here.
Yep, that's the hook that the line will go on. The pilot will lower this hook down to pick up the capsule. They'll fly it back to the clean room, lower it down, and then when he lowers it down, he'll hit a little button on his collective, it'll hook, and he'll fly away with the line.
This is not a normal ride. Can you show us how you fly this for this particular mission?
Yeah, so this helicopter, when we're doing vertical reference, that's what you call it when you have a line on. Now to see the end of the line, I'll be leaning out like this. It's an awkward position, and kind of lean out and look back because my hook's going to be right down in the middle of the helicopter. It will button. This button here is the remote hook, and that will keep the line on the belly, but it'll open that little green.
And flew the Osiris-Rex spacecraft for NASA. Robert, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. What a great day. Pretty exciting.
Yes, Robert, thank you.
Pretty exciting.
So this has many firsts tech as well. Can you tell us more about some of the new technologies that were integrated into Osiris-Rex?
Yeah, you know, there's one to mind for me. The first is obviously the touch-and-go sample collector, where we had to come up with what we called the pogo stick. How we're going to hit the asteroid and collect the sample. So that was the first thing. I think we had a natural feature terrain activity that we did that was really associated with was kind of a backup for guidance and navigation, but we ended up needing it because we got to the asteroid. You remember there were very large boulders we didn't expect to see that we had through. Finally, probably the most unsung part was our digital twin. We created a digital twin for the spacecraft. Remember, this was right in the middle of it. Right. And so being able to do the sample, use the digital